Students today have been protesting against the Gaza genocide, 2 years since October the 7th, the appalling massacre. And in the media and, in fact, the government itself, Starmer has slandered these students, saying they're somehow being insensitive to the suffering of October the 7th, or indeed to what happened, the terrible crime in Manchester that happened last week, while ignoring the obvious fact that their priority is to oppose the genocide now, to oppose the ongoing conflict, which Britain, unfortunately, is complicit in because we are still sending weapons to Israel.
So I'm here today because I find it incredibly insensitive and offensive that they would organize such an event again on a Jewish holiday. Today is the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. But furthermore, October 7th was a day in which Israel was invaded. Israel was the victim. It was an awful, awful event, the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And
2 years have passed since the October 7th attacks that shook Israel to its core. Yet the reverberations of that dreadful day continue to be felt across the globe, nowhere more acutely than here in Britain. On the second anniversary of those attacks, a senior Israeli diplomat has delivered a stark and troubling warning to Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the British public. Welcome to UK Decoded. Please subscribe to the channel for daily updates on hot topics concerning UK politics and royal family with detailed breakdowns.
We didn't see an Israeli military response in any way, shape, or form until October 27th. And so to protest today specifically isn't a sign of support for Palestinians, it's a sign of support for Hamas and the actions that happened that day.
This cause, the Palestine cause, is the cause of the generation of the last 100 years and probably the next 50 years until there's full justice for the people of Palestine. It represents the sort of return to our humanity, collectively, globally.
The priority for me as the son of a Holocaust survivor is not just to mourn people who've already died, no matter how much important that is. It's to stop the killing now, as we speak today. Weapons today made in Britain are contributing to the deaths of children and others in Gaza as we speak. That has to stop now in order to save those lives.
UK politics and royal family with detailed breakdown. The message is unequivocal and deeply concerning. Antisemitism has not merely increased in the United Kingdom. It has exploded with volcanic force, spilling over into bloodshed on British streets. Alex Gandler, the official spokesperson of the Israeli embassy in Britain, spoke candidly about the deteriorating situation facing Jewish communities across this nation. His words came just 5 days after a terrorist attack at the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation synagogue claimed the lives of 2 Jewish worshippers. The attack, which occurred during Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, was carried out by an Islamist terrorist identified as Jihad Al-Shamie. Speaking on the Daily Expresso podcast, Gandler did not mince his words. He described the current climate in language that should send shivers down the spine of anyone who values a tolerant, pluralistic society. The antisemitism that has been boiling here for the past few years has exploded like a volcano of stabbing and bullets and blood, Gandler stated. I am very sorry for what is happening here. These are not the words of a diplomat engaging in hyperbole for effect. These are the measured, deeply felt observations of someone who represents a nation that knows all too well the deadly consequences of unchecked hatred. When a representative of the Israeli government speaks of blood spilled in British synagogues, we must listen. The context for Gandler's warning cannot be ignored. 2 years ago, on October 7th, Hamas launched a coordinated assault on Israel that resulted in the deaths of approximately 1,200 people and saw around 250 individuals taken captive. The slaughter made that day the bloodiest in Israel's modern history and represented the deadliest single day for Jewish people anywhere in the world since the Holocaust. The scars of that day remain raw, not only in Israel but in Jewish communities worldwide, including here in the United Kingdom. Yet what concerns Gandler most is not merely the remembrance of past atrocities but the manifestation of hatred in the present. He points specifically to the pro-Palestine marches that have become a regular feature of British streets since October 7th. On the surface, these demonstrations might appear to be expressions of legitimate political protest, exercises in free speech that are the hallmark of any democratic society. However, Gandler warns that something far more sinister has taken root within these gatherings. It sounds to us quite peaceful, Gandler explained. People are marching for an idea. It is nice, and it sounds as if there is something grander than just an individual, those marches. But they have turned into something else. They have definitely turned into something that is detrimental to their cause. This transformation from political protest to something darker represents one of the most troubling developments in British civic life in recent years. What began as expressions of solidarity with Palestinian civilians has, in too many instances, morphed into displays of antisemitism that would have been unthinkable in mainstream British society just a generation ago. The podcast host, JJ Anisiobi, asked Gandler a question that cuts to the heart of the matter. Does he feel safe while living and working in the United Kingdom? The answer should alarm us all. Gandler admitted that he feels less safe than before, a remarkable admission from a diplomat representing a foreign nation in what has historically been one of the most stable and tolerant countries in the world. He also revealed a detail that underscores the gravity of the security situation facing Israeli officials in Britain. Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell, wore a bulletproof vest when speaking in Manchester on Sunday, just days after the synagogue attack in that very city. It is hard to believe that our politicians, Israelis, have to walk around in fear of being shot here in England, in the United Kingdom, Gandler said. The image of a foreign minister donning body armor to deliver a speech on British soil is one that should give us all pause. This is not Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, cities that have tragically grown accustomed to heightened security measures due to persistent threats. This is Manchester, a great British city with a proud history of tolerance and diversity. Yet here we are, in 2025, with foreign dignitaries requiring bulletproof vests to feel secure enough to address a public gathering. Despite the very real personal risks, Gandler and his colleagues at the Israeli embassy are determined to continue their work. Security matters more to us now, he acknowledged. It does not mean we will stop working. It makes us stronger. There is a defiant courage in these words, but also a tragedy. No diplomat should have to demonstrate such courage simply to carry out routine diplomatic functions in the United Kingdom. Gandler's warning to Britain extends beyond his own personal security concerns. He is sounding an alarm about the broader implications of what he sees unfolding across this country. Britain should not turn a blind eye to whatever is happening, he cautioned. This is perhaps the most important element of his message. The temptation in any society is to minimize uncomfortable truths, to explain away troubling patterns, to avoid confronting difficult realities that might prove divisive or uncomfortable to address. Yet history teaches us, particularly Jewish history, that such avoidance comes at a terrible price. Gandler was explicit about what he sees happening at these pro-Palestine marches. The marches, not everyone, but too many people in those marches have been saying things that are not similar to antisemitism but are antisemitism. He is careful to note that not every participant in these demonstrations harbors anti-Semitic views. Yet the presence of too many who do should concern anyone who cares about the character of British society. When hatred is allowed to march openly through our streets, when it is normalized as merely another form of political expression, we have crossed a dangerous threshold. The embassy spokesperson's call to action is straightforward: acknowledge the problem. Acknowledge that it is happening here in the United Kingdom, that it needs to change and take responsibility over what is happening. This is not an unreasonable demand. Recognition is the first step toward addressing any social ill. Yet there are worrying signs that British authorities and political leaders have been slow to fully grasp the magnitude of the problem or to respond with the seriousness it demands. Consider the scene that unfolded in Manchester on Friday, just one day after the terrorist attack at the synagogue. Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy was confronted by an angry crowd demanding that he stop the marches. The timing is significant. In the immediate aftermath of a deadly attack on Jewish worshippers, members of the public felt compelled to directly confront a senior government minister about the ongoing demonstrations that many believe contribute to an atmosphere of hostility toward British Jews. The fact that such a confrontation occurred speaks volumes about the level of frustration and fear within certain segments of the British population. The question facing Britain today is whether we possess the moral clarity and political courage to confront this rising tide of antisemitism. The warning signs have been present for some time. Jewish students on university campuses report feeling unsafe and unwelcome. Jewish businesses have been targeted. Synagogues now require security measures that would have seemed paranoid just a decade ago. And now, We have witnessed fatal violence directed at Jewish worshippers on one of their holiest days. Some will argue that criticism of Israeli government policy should not be conflated with antisemitism. This is true as far as it goes. Legitimate political disagreement about the actions of any government, including Israel's, is a fundamental right in any free society. Yet Gandler is not talking about thoughtful policy critiques. He is talking about rhetoric and actions that cross the line from political speech into hatred directed at Jewish people as Jews. When protesters chant slogans calling for violence, when Jewish symbols and institutions are targeted, when Jews feel unsafe walking the streets of British cities, we have moved far beyond the realm of legitimate political discourse. The British government's response to this crisis will define not only its relationship with the Jewish community, but also its commitment to the fundamental values that underpin a liberal democratic society. Tolerance, pluralism, the protection of minorities, and the rejection of hatred in all its forms are not optional extras in British civic life. They are foundational principles without which our social fabric begins to unravel. What makes Gandler's warning particularly powerful is its source. This is not domestic scaremongering or political point scoring. This is an external observer, someone representing a nation that has extensive and painful experience with antisemitism, telling us what he sees happening here. When such a voice delivers such a stark warning, we ignore it at our peril. The explosion of antisemitism that Gandler describes did not happen overnight, nor will it be resolved quickly or easily. It represents the culmination of years of gradual normalization, of lines crossed incrementally, of warning signs dismissed or downplayed. The question now is whether Britain will muster the collective will to push back, to re-establish clear boundaries, and to make unequivocally clear that hatred against any community will not be tolerated. As we mark 2 years since the October 7th attacks, we must remember not only the victims of that terrible day, but also the ongoing consequences that continue to ripple outward. British Jews are living those consequences every day, in heightened security measures, in the fear that accompanies attendance at synagogue, in the calculations about whether it is safe to wear visible symbols of Jewish identity in public. This is not the Britain we claim to be, nor the Britain we should accept. Alex Gandler has delivered his warning. The question now is whether Britain is listening.